So there's a couple little things we've got to work on. Our brake pedal seems to have completely deflated. I don't know if that's the correct terminology, but we're gonna have to work on the brakes next before we can go for a test drive. But we're getting so close. As you can see, the Torino has moved from its normal parking spot. It was a pretty funny experience, to be honest, and also kind of terrifying. Let me tell you about it. We needed to test to see if the brakes were working because a car can't drive without brakes. So we had to take it for a test drive since it seems to be running okay. So we got inside, we turned her on, and we started rolling backwards to see if we could gain some speed and test out the brakes, right? The brakes are completely locked up, and the car wouldn't move, so we were just going back and forth until we finally got off the concrete here. It was kind of a crazy experience, and I really regret not videoing it because it probably would have looked hilarious. But George is now off the concrete, and now we need to get him back on the concrete somehow so we can work on the brakes. We took these wheels off of the back and took the drums off for the drum brakes just to see what we could do with them. We took them to a man who was able to meal them out, and look how nice and smooth those are looking. Should just make the back brakes better, but we also have to take off the front tires and the front brakes, which are pads, and then we will see if anything's wrong with those. But for now, I want to clean these off really nicely and give them a nice new black paint job with just some regular old spray paint, just so they won't rust again. So I'm going to do that right now. Ooh, these look good. I know they're only the drum and they won't get seen much, but just doing these small things as I'm taking them off is going to make a huge difference. Once they're dry, I'm going to put them back on the car, and then we've got to take off those front wheels to see what's going on with them. Update number 2, we took the pads and the calipers off of the front brakes, and we're going to replace both of them. So without further ado, let's get into a time lapse and replace those. Okay, the new brake calipers are in and they are looking fancy. I gotta do the other side, so I'm gonna do that real quick, and I will have a report once we have the wheels back on. Alright, both the wheels are back on, and hopefully the brakes are hooked up all correctly. And the carburetor is back in. We took it to a professional and he redid it completely for us, because it was still running just a little bit weird. Look at it, it's beautiful. So we're about to start it up and see how the Torino runs. Okay, a couple updates with the Torino. The brakes. We gave her another test, and we tried bleeding the brakes, and we tried several times to bleed the brakes, I'm telling you. And we're finally starting to get some brake fluid out the fronts, but absolutely nothing out the backs. So the solution now is to replace the master cylinder. We have one, and I'm about to put it in, and that's the next step. So let's replace the master cylinder, and hopefully the brakes will be working. The master cylinder is out, but one small problem. Just a second ago when I was loosening it, one of these fuel lines just snapped in half, so that's gonna need to be replaced. Not actually sure how you replace those, but I'm sure I'll figure it out. Alright, and right here is some new brake fluid, first off, and the new master cylinder, looking all nice and shiny. Let's get this guy installed. Okay, sorry I didn't record putting the master cylinder back on, but look how good it looks. Looking nice and shiny, and so is this engine bay. Forgot to mention, we got a new air filter, and it is beautiful. We do have to get a new rod because the one it came with was too short, so we gotta get a new one. But it looks amazing. So we've got to bleed the brakes real quick now that we've got the new master cylinder on. And then, I guess it's time for a test drive. Maybe finally this one will be successful? We'll see. Alright, so we tried to do our second test drive, and the exact same thing happened as last time. The brake pedal shot down to the floor, and we lost our brakes. So we didn't even leave the concrete this time, because we're gonna go ahead and just replace the last part of the brakes that there is to replace, which is the brake booster. Everything else has been replaced except the lines running and they appear to be working because we're getting fluid on all sides. So there's only one more option that it could be, and it could be this booster. So we're just gonna try and replace that, and hopefully at that point we'll have some working brakes. More bad news, but it'll be all right. We'll get it going. Okay, the brake booster finally came in. It took a long time, and these things are nearly impossible to get. Had no idea when we started looking that this would be so hard and really expensive. We ended up having to get a kit that came with the new master cylinder and the brake booster, but I wanted to use the master cylinder that we had because one, it's smaller. For two, the lines run how they are supposed to with this car, so we don't have to change anything. And for three, I had already painted it. And yes, I did paint it because it was rusting, and it matches that blue color we did on the valve covers, which is really nice. So it's time to get the new brake booster installed, and then at that point, we will have completely redone the brakes, and absolutely nothing can be wrong with them.
I was wrong.
Time to get that installed. Okay, we got everything hooked back up, and it was really, really hard. Got the new bracket on, the new booster, and the new master cylinder. So hopefully everything works. We're about to bleed the brakes, and then we'll give it a test. George's brakes are all bled up. Sounds kind of strange. And we're gonna give him a test drive. Hopefully we'll have brakes this time. After that last test there, we were still having a bit of sponginess in the brakes. So we went ahead and replaced the last possible part, the wheel cylinders, and we replaced those on both back drum brakes, and hopefully everything is hooked up properly now. Let's get another test.
So like, you have to press the gas to make it go.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Oh, gosh. The brakes are finally mostly pretty much good enough working. This was like a month process just getting the brakes to work on George, and it was really stressful. Let me tell you what we did. First off, we replaced the wheel cylinders and the drums. We got them cleaned out on both of the back sides, and on the front wheels we replaced the pads and the calipers on both sides. And then we got a new brake booster and a new master cylinder, and one of these wires down here broke, so I had to replace that as well. And down on the back side back here, I don't think you can see it, but there's another brake line that runs across to this tire, and it was cracked, so we had to replace it as well. It was a lot, but we finally got it working, I think, for the most part anyway. So I do hope you enjoyed this video, and me and George will see you in the next one. Bye!